company who helps dealers with risk and compliance. Risk is the insurance side, making sure everything is buttoned up in that way. And compliance, of course, we all know what compliance is and how that works. Just to introduce myself briefly, I'm a former dealer of 30 years. I've been in the car industry 34 years. My family's been in the car business since 1925. So I'm a third generation car guy. And I talk about risk and compliance issues. And in that, I like to use an analogy. Running a dealership is like trying to tuck an octopus into bed, and the tentacles keep flopping all over the place. Actually, as evidenced by these great bookends given to me by Rachel Blatt. Shout out to Rachel. So today we're going to talk about unintended consequences right after a quick 6-second from our sponsor, Better Vantage Point. Okay, we're back. So first thing I want to talk about is a $4.4 million verdict against a California dealership, Crown CDJR in Ventura, California. What had happened was a sales manager rushed to the store to close a deal and on his day off. And why was he rushing? Because he was on his day off. Tragically, a gentleman was killed, and this went to court, and they were fined $4.4 million. So the reason this is important is in conversations about unintended consequences. When you're transacting your daily business, whether you're a sales manager or a general manager, you run through so many different items, and you think about so many different items, and you have so many decisions. It's really important to think about unintended consequences, right? This reason the sales manager was rushing in is because, of course, he didn't want to give the deal to anybody else. So he wanted to keep it for himself. And so as a result of him rushing in, judgment for $4.4 million. So just something to think about when you're making your decisions. Ensure that you think about what could happen, what bad could happen from this. And if you do, you'll generally make better decisions. So that's the first thing. So the next thing I want to talk about today are regulators. Regulators are those government agencies who can enforce us to do things. And they can do it because they have the authority to do it. The Federal Trade Commission is an example of a regulatory body. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is an example. And there are many more. There are many different regulators. As an example, the attorneys general have been very active in states recently and enforcing judgments and practices on car businesses. Members of the House of Representatives, whether it's state or federal, they get involved with automobile complaints. I can tell you I've had experience with that. The state police, the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS is an example. The IRS 8300 cash reporting form. Most dealerships I go into, they aren't doing it right. They think they are doing it right. As an example, I had a dealer group. I recently found 10 that they hadn't done right in 2023. So if you have questions on the specifics of that, please reach out and call me. You can find the information in the comments for my contact information, and I'll give it at the end. So all these people can regulate and tell us how we have to run our dealerships. So it's important to know, and there are many more. I've told this story before to some colleagues, but you'll be amazed how many different regulators there are. As an example, when I was at the store, one day the police department of the Department of Housing and Urban Development came into my office, and they wanted to see a deal because there was someone living in Section 8 housing that had just bought a new Tahoe. So they wanted to know, obviously, how he had the income to pay for a Tahoe, but didn't have the income to pay for an apartment. So be aware, there are regulators everywhere. And where there aren't regulators, there are attorneys to enforce the laws in your state, both state and federal, if you are doing something incorrect. A few other, I want to go over a few other enforcement actions recently. Greico Automotive in Rhode Island was fined $557,000 because they were charging customers for add-on products that the customers, number one, didn't know about, and number two, that they were not getting any benefit from. You're going to hear a lot more about these types of actions now with the new CARS, C-A-R-S regulations, which go into effect July the 30th. You're going to hear me talk more about the 372 pages of regulations that are out there. July 30th is a deadline. The NADA sued in the Fifth Circuit, which is in Texas, this week to say that the regulations are outside what they should be and to try to get them overturned. We'll see what happens with that. Stay tuned here for more on that. But one of the part of the regulations is that if you're selling something to a customer, there has to be a benefit to it, a tangible benefit, and you can't sell nitrogen tires as an example that they use. There's going to be more about this. One other very important thing in CARS is if you're charging a processing fee or you're charging a dock fee, the advertisements that you use will have to include that fee. So in my opinion, there's not going to be any MSRP pricing. It's going to be the dealership's price, which will include MSRP, probably plus the dock fee. This will make it more difficult for people with higher dock fees to be competitive on the internet. You're going to have to keep 24 months worth of training materials and advertising materials. That's going to be super complicated when it comes to your website, which is your main source of advertising. So we're going to talk more about this as time goes on. But I wanted to tell you the $557,000 on Greico Automotive fine by Rhode Island. The next was more a situation with bad press. So MacMulkin Chevrolet in Nashua, New Hampshire, had a customer who bought a new vehicle. The check engine light wouldn't go off a period of time, and this was a known problem according to the article I read. It was a known problem about this check engine light. When it came time for the customer to get a new inspection sticker, he couldn't get a new inspection sticker because the check engine light came on. Therefore, he couldn't get the inspection sticker. Therefore, he couldn't drive the vehicle because he couldn't get an inspection sticker. From the article I read, they didn't offer to try to trade him out or give him a loaner car, or make some payments for him while General Motors was working on what the fix was for this problem. It was a known problem, according to the article I read. It was a known problem before he even bought it. So the dealership decided to sell that vehicle anyway. The salesman or the sales manager told him there's nothing that we could do, and as a result, there was a article in I think it was the Boston Globe. There were 334 comments at the last time I took a look at the article. It was a bad situation for PR for them, and so it's just important for you to always give options to customers instead of them feeling like you give them one option and you're shoving it down their throat. Consider giving them two options. We can do this or we can do this. I have not talked to them about the situation from their side. I'm only looking at it from what I read in the paper. But I think there's a good lesson there to make sure that you're giving them options. The next on the enforcement parade here, it was Reliable Chevrolet, was fined $2.5 million plus $87,000. Customer had $12,000 of negative equity. He was trading in 2 vehicles, and the dealership was trying to get the deal done, missed 2 loan payments. The customer's beacon score dropped like 126 points, and subsequently he had a consolidation loan that was denied. His credit limit decreased on his credit card, and he had to cancel his plans to move because his beacon score went down so much. So he sued the dealership. Reliable, according to Automotive News, argued about it in court for several years and got a judgment. So my recommendation is car dealers are not going to win in court, and work on getting those settled. If you want some tips on settling lawsuits, please call me. I've had plenty of experience there, and I'm happy to talk about it. The next is Swickard Auto Group in Alaska. Swickard has 48 stores in 6 states, and someone went in to buy a car. The customer actually was an investigator with Alaska's Department of Law. The sales agent, he wanted to buy a car at a specific price. The sales agent told him that they were falsely advertising the price just to get people in. And so they got fined. I think they're still arguing with the state of Alaska on that one. The next, and there are so many, right? I'm not even going over all of them, but Hoover Mitsubishi in Charleston, they have 2 people in jail. They were falsifying bank statements, down payment, paycheck stubs, proof of residence, and they got put in jail as a result of that. The next is Bobby Mays at the Big Red dealerships. He defrauded 23 lenders, misrepresenting about the type and source and the amount of the down payment and the trade-ins. He was charged with wire fraud, bribery, and forgery. He's in jail now for 130 months and was fined $2.3 million in fines. One of the things that he did, he was paying the down payment for the customers and falsely representing to the lender that it was a legitimate down payment. He also took in items. He formed his own pawn shop. He accepted items and then gave the dealership money. 3 or 4 examples I have here: $1,000 for an Xbox, an iPhone 5, and a used Amazon tablet resulted in a $3,700 down payment. A salesperson generated a pawn slip for an Apple iPad 2, which resulted in a $500 down payment, and they never turned in the iPad. And they accepted a PlayStation 4 and showed a $2,300 down payment. Again, all these things are illegal, and this is why he's in jail. There were 476 occurrences where this happened that were documented. I'm sure there were more. Also, while the case was going on, he tampered with the case. He admitted to encouraging a co-defendant to flee to Mexico, and he sent an anonymous email with false claims to the court to try to get it thrown out. So these are some more. One more that I'm going to go over is Vroom. Vroom recently, in the last week or 2, settled with the state of Texas for $3 million. That does not include, of course, the soft cost of dealing with all of the things that Vroom had to deal with, or their lawyers' fees. I'd say easily they paid over $5 million to settle this. Basically, the allegations were that Vroom had engaged in deceptive trade practices, including failing to satisfy certain terms of sale, failing to disclose certain vehicle histories or quality and characteristics, and misrepresenting the work that was done on sold vehicles. But all this started because of customer complaints. They had nearly 5,000 complaints, 4,000 of which were over the 12 months preceding the filing in April of 2022. That's really why this happened. Some examples that customers complained about. I read the complaint, which was quite long. One customer found internal rust as a result of the vehicle sitting in water. One customer had a driver's seat that wouldn't go back and forth because the rail was damaged. They attempted to deliver a customer a vehicle that couldn't be removed from the trailer because of a failed parking brake pump. Another had undisclosed structural damage. Another customer complained they purchased a vehicle and had later learned that that Vroom had bought the vehicle from a Florida auction with a salvage title. And another customer complained they purchased a Tesla with a specific trim package, but the vehicle didn't come with the trim package. So they entered into a legal consent order, which was 11 pages, which governs how they have to operate on a go-forward basis. And that's when you don't have controls over what's going on in the store. That's what happens. So if you're interested in talking about any of these cases, or interested in talking about how you can prevent these kinds of things from happening at the store, that's what I do. And I'd be happy to receive your call and try to tuck the octopus, as it were. So let me give you my digits, as it were. My phone number is 757-434-7656, 757-434-7656. Or my website is bettervantagepoint.com. And I always will welcome your call, and the meter won't run when you call. We'll just talk about how to solve some problems immediately, and we'll get it handled for you. So I'll look forward to your calls. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm Tom Kline, and thanks for seeing things from Better Vantage Point. Have a great day.